Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wands and Rabbits, this brand new podcast where we will be talking about everything taboo, everything sexual, about pleasure, about toys, basically anything that men don't want us to talk about, we will be talking about right here.
And yeah, yeah.
And you are with me, Cath and Gail.
Hi everyone. So this is a cross country podcast because
Hmm.
Kat is based in Cambodia and I'm based in Ghana. But I feel like women everywhere we struggle with the same set of stigma and stereotypes, and men in each country they are basically the same. It's like their genetic makeup does not change irrespective of where they're located. So I'm sure this is going to rock them in a very negative way, but obviously we don't care. And we're just here for the girlies because we are girls, and we hope you keep coming back because this podcast is just going to be full of a lot of Jews, and you are going to
A
get
lot of
different
Jews.
perspectives. Yeah, Jews. Jews. That's making me think of things I probably shouldn't be thinking of right now. But yeah.
I mean, we might be continents away, but the one thing that women share in common is, I don't want to say girlhood, but our femininity, but also our sense of, in a way, liberation, right? We're in this
Yeah.
era where we're talking about sexual liberation, about freedom. We're in the era of Sabrina Carpenter, where we're talking about Batcave, where we're talking about Juno. So here we are talking about wands and rabbits in also the era of Chaperone as well. So yeah, in this episode, we will be talking about female pleasure. So Gail,
I
why is female pleasure so important?
Because we are human, first of all. I feel like we live in a society where women are told that if you're having sex, you're having sex to procreate. Like you're not supposed to feel pleasure from sex. Which, if you're listening to this and people tell you that, they are lying to you because
Mm-hmm.
sexual pleasure is, I think it's one of the highlights of being human, experiencing pleasure in that way. So it's very important because it's a form of empowerment, and like you said before, it's a form of female liberation because I think sex as a subject is something that society uses to shame and stigmatize women because as a woman they have like all these things in place for you that you can do and you can't do when it comes to sex. Meanwhile, men can get away with whatever. So it really is about time we start having these conversations. And I feel like we are in an era where I'm seeing like sexually empowered women like a lot, and I love it. I so love it. Like women are out here claiming their oaths
Mm-hmm.
and doing everything necessary to make sure that yes, I'm pleasured. Like we are no longer in the era of I'm just going to lie here and take it because you are giving it to me. We're in the era of if you are doing it wrong, I'm going to speak up and let you know that hey, I don't like it and you should do it this way. So I think generally it's just very empowering and it's something that every woman should get to experience in their life. Not once, not twice. Literally during every sexual contact, you should feel some pleasure. It doesn't even have to be orgasm, but like you just need to feel pleasure and then acknowledge that this is something that you deserve, irrespective of what the man you are with or whatever partner. I'm saying man because I feel like lesbian partners probably get it. I don't know, but like
I mean,
they probably
statistically,
definitely they get it.
yeah.
So I'm saying men because most times, yeah, they're clueless and they're just here to get off. So yeah, it's important because it's empowering and it's liberating because I mean, just imagine how it feels when you're coming.
We're doing this right from the get go, and I think we're just talking trash about men within the first 5 minutes. But it is what it is. But yeah, I agree because if you're looking at it historically, sex has always been something that women are on the receiving end of it. It's something that's being done to women, whereas men are the one doing it, actively doing it, while women are passively taking whatever it is. We can even see it in the language itself.
Yeah.
Um, even was like men would be the one doing, I don't know if I can say the F word, so I let's not, so that we don't get censored on social media. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's sad because I say that a lot. So now I'm
you
going to
I
have to
do that
try
as well.
to.
Yeah, I mean social media, big tech, all of that. But anyway, so men would be the one effing, right? But women would be the one being effed. So words like that, language really matters. So if you look at it
Yeah.
historically, it's women have always been the one on the end of it, and it's never
Yeah.
about our pleasure. It's always about, like, even with female orgasm, for example, it's very there's very little known about it because studies have not been done a lot about it because people, male scientists, deemed it to not be important. Even the clitoris wasn't discovered until very, very recently in the 2000s, which is crazy, right? Because we know a lot
Like
about male anatomy.
that's tea because how were women before just getting orgasms through penetration and not clitoral?
No, women did get they did orgasm from clitoral pleasure, but
Yeah.
stimulation, but we didn't know that there is a clitoris. We didn't know that it's called a clitoris. So it might have been they stimulated down there and it's like, this feels good. But I don't know why it feels good. It's kind of like how in the 20th century when women were diagnosed with hysteria, basically depression and anxiety from their husbands. But when they were diagnosed with hysteria, they would go to the doctors and the doctors would masturbate them. That was the technique of them getting the treatment. And they didn't know that that was masturbation. They didn't know that the women feel better because of orgasm because so little is known about female pleasure. You are
Yeah.
shocked. I can see it in your
I
face.
am. You always have all the historical tea, and I love you for that. You always have the tea. So because these are things I've literally never heard before.
Yeah, I mean, even even the female uterus, for example, women were not allowed to be on trains because it was thought that women's uterus would fall out if we get on a train. That's how much they don't know and don't care to understand and study about our body. Yeah.
And that sounds ignorant. AF.
Yeah, but they just don't care. I mean, it's women's body. Who cares about women's body, right? They're only there to, as long as they can reproduce and make babies, who cares? But that's why we're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Because that's all we were known and good for. Making babies. Making babies. I'm so glad I'm in an era where I can be child free though. By choice.
Yeah, and I saw this post on social media the other day, and they said that we are one of the first women in an era where we can decide not to have children and not to get married and not financially suffer for it, right? Because way back in our mother's generation, our grandmother's generation, they relied on men because they couldn't work, they got paid so little, because in some countries they couldn't even own a bank account or own property, and because of that they relied on marriage, on men. But we in this generation, thanks to feminism, we don't have to rely on men anymore. We can just live and vibe.
I love it. I love it so much. I love that we get to experience this generation. But I feel like whatever generation the two of us were in would probably definitely be women's advocates. But I really like that we are in this era as well. It gives us so many opportunities to like truly be ourselves and not feel like we have to bow down to what society expects of us. So just going back to our topic right now. When was the first time you learned about female pleasure? Like in Ghana, there's no sex ed, so I did not get to experience anything like that. That's going to teach me like, oh, this and that. So what about you? Like how was your first experience?
When did I learn about female orgasm? Interesting question, even though I was the one who wrote that question. um, I don't know actually. So our sex education here is also very limited as well. I remember in class when I was in sixth grade, we were only taught about puberty, but we weren't even really taught that because the male teacher, didn't want to teach us anything about that. I think so. When I was young, there were these magazines, normal magazines, but on the very back of the magazines, there would be a section and they put 18 plus, where they talk about sex, they talk about orgasm, they talk about pleasure, but also in a very male gaze kind of way. Also, very,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how accurate the information was, but it was there. And you know how when we were young, there wasn't any smartphones. So when we go to the toilet, when we go to the bathroom, we would be reading, or I at the time there would be like magazines, the rack and everything in the bathroom. So when I go to the toilet, I would just sit there and read. And then it was the time when I had the privacy to read that, like explicit, that forbidden pages in a magazine. So I started learning about orgasm, about pleasure and everything. And I wish it didn't have to be that way, because who knows where the writers got the information from, right? But that was my entry into sex, into pleasure. And then, of course, I stumbled upon pornography, which is also not the ideal way to learn about sex. But then once I grew up, I started researching more and read more into that, so it was more accurate information about pleasure. And then, of course, masturbation came into the picture and all that. But we'll keep that for later episodes. What about you, Gail?
So I think I remember. So in Ghana as well, there was this particular newspaper. I'm sorry, Ghanaians who will see this if I get the name wrong. I think it was called PPP or something, like it just had this P thing, and it was very
Just the P
sensationalized.
thing.
Yeah, it was a very sensationalized newspaper. So that's where you find like all the sex stories and like things like that. And I remember like being aged as a teen around 12, 13, I would hide to buy those because those are like my first, I don't know, introduction. So, like obviously, in biology class, they'll teach you about like the female body and the male body, but it's in a very like scientific way. There's even nothing really educational about it. They're just showing you like your body parts and what their functions are basically. So I used to hide to read these things, and this is why my love for erotica started, because they used to have like these really short sections. I feel like I've always been a very like sexual person since the moment I hit my teens. That was it. There was no going back for me. So I started reading Harlequins. So I got introduced to erotica before I even got introduced to porn. So like mine was that newspaper. Then I started reading those books, and then eventually porn. Which, like you said, that's it it's not reality. Porn especially is not reality. And this newspaper, I'm also guessing that it was heavily male dominated because they had a lot of content in them with like female strippers. Like
Yep.
they're showing like female strippers. So yeah, it was also to appeal to the male gaze. So there wasn't a lot to learn from it. I think I got a lot of my things from books, which were helpful. I hope they were solid though, because I picked up too much for them not to be good enough. But yeah, that was an introduction to sexual pleasure as a whole. And then yeah, obviously it's a I think it took me a long while to actually start masturbating because
Mm.
yeah, very religious home. So even though I was reading these things and all that, I was still like, I'm this is wrong. This is wrong. I'm not supposed to do it. So I don't remember the first time I masturbated, but I don't think it happened anytime before I turned 19. So
Hmm.
it took me a really, yeah, it took me a really long while to like be that calm. Even though I knew I was a very sexual person, masturbation took me a while. I know that's a conversation we'll have another day. So yeah, I'm just ending this year.
My first time was actually when I was 16. I remember it very vividly. I mean, I not to get too much into masturbation, but I always knew like you know how when you were young and you were rubbing yourself against a pillow, right? And you're like, this feels or maybe it's just me, but you know when you rub
I
yourself a
don't think
certain
it's just you.
way.
I didn't experience it, but I don't think it's just you.
Okay, so and then you're kind of wondering why does it feel good when there's friction that in that part, right? And then my first time was when I was 16. Also happened to me the first time that I orgasmed as well, and I it makes me, which goes into the next question as well, which is the taboos around female pleasure. I know that for many women, they have never experienced what an orgasm is. And it's very, very sad for me because, and I know that asexual people exist and not everyone consider pleasure to be like this end all be all kind of thing. Some people don't care about pleasure. Some people don't care about orgasms. There's like a spectrum. But then it's also sad that some women never got to experience that even though they might want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
um
yeah,
like they never get to experience what feels good for them, what they like, what they don't like because of all these taboos, because sometimes they also shame themselves as well. There's a lot of
yeah.
internalized shame when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to orgasm and sex. I remember going on Facebook and there was this whole thing where this post was about women and sex toys. They're like, oh, women use all these sex toys and they're loose women, they're terrible women, and all of that. And in the comment
Oh,
section itself was a bunch of women going in and they were like, oh, these women are sluts and and hoes and all of that. Proper women would just go, Gail, I kid you not. One of the women said, if you want it so much, why don't you go get a husband? Why do you have to use sex toys? Why don't you just go get a husband? Like, what? Why is it that you need. How? What kind of logic is
why
this?
do I need a man to have sexual pleasure anyway? And
Right?
the case in point, the orgasm gap clearly shows that being with a man does not guarantee that you're going to feel pleasure. Like,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah,
please.
exactly.
And some people are really sexual and they are women, but they've never experienced an orgasm before. I had a friend who, until very recently, happened to meet like a guy who knew his way around like a woman's body before that, and she was almost 25 when she
Mm-hmm.
experienced her first orgasm, which is crazy because she had been sexually active for a while, so she was just having sex. Like, I get it that sex can be had without having like, oh, I need to have an orgasm in mind. Like, it's also a great thing to experience. So just
Mm-hmm.
imagine all the women out there who are not experiencing it. I think for my part of the world, there's a lot of purity culture, there's the shame, the taboo about using sex toys as well, which you just mentioned. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone, a man, and then we were talking about how, like, in this part of the world, when a girl is sexually liberated and knows her body, she's tagged like all the names you just mentioned. She's a slut, she's a whore, she's all that. So men are out here complaining that, oh, girls are boring, or girls don't want to make up on make out on the first date, or girls don't want to put out until maybe like 2 or 3 months into getting to know them, and they find this problematic. And I'm like, there's a dissonance because you are the same men out here who are saying, oh, I'm going to want to settle with a good girl. And a good
Mhm.
girl in your books is a girl who is not sexually empowered, who is not sexually liberated. But as you are dating, you are looking for these same women who actually know their body. So there's this whole shame that is attached to when a woman knows her body and knows the power they have within them to make themselves feel good. Because the issue about sex toys is some men also complain that if a girl uses a lot of sex toys, there's a very high chance that they are not going to be sexually satisfied when they are with a man. I'm
Look,
like just say you're not good enough.
yeah, if you feel intimidated by an inanimate object, you need to re-examine you as a person, your security as a person, how your
Right.
confidence as a man, as a person. Because
Right.
why in the hell are you jealous of a sex of an object? So yeah, just
I
say that you
always
don't know
say
how to
it
do
can
it.
be a helper because if, as a man, you're trying to please this woman, like why
Hmm.
don't you want all these additions so that she will have a great time? I
Toys are
dated
your
a guy
friends.
who told me, right? I dated a guy who told me to get rid of my sex toys, and I got rid of him because what do
They
you mean?
are
I'm
expensive
not.
too.
Right, right. And that's so good. I mean, it's available 24/7 to me. Like even when you come over and you don't make me come, I know that I can rely on my sex toys and they'll get the job done. Like you can go, I'll keep my sex toys respectfully. Please.
So, sex toys is actually illegal in Cambodia. So, I'm pledging plausible deniability here. I'm neither admitting nor not admitting that I have them. Plausible deniability. But in all seriousness, sex toys is illegal in Cambodia because,
That's
according to the
crazy.
authority, sex toys would corrupt Cambodian women and would destroy our culture and purity because it would lead women to do improper, to do like dirty and sinful and immoral things, which is basically saying, which is basically a lot of words for saying that we're threatened by sex toys because if women have access to sex toys, they would not want us men anymore. That's what I take from it. Because how is it that men can go find pleasure in various ways, services and sex work and all of that? Sex work is work, by the way, but they have all these ways of achieving pleasure, of seeking pleasure, whereas women are not even allowed to have sex toys. So, yeah, this is the patriarchy for you.
It's so I think somewhere 2023, 2024, the government in Ghana were also trying to introduce this family value law or something. And one of the things under that law was sex toys were going to be illegal. So
Hmm.
if you are seen with one, if you're a vendor who sells some, it's illegal and it's going to be criminalized. And people went crazy about it. I think I've stopped following that law because there was just a lot of controversy, and it was also going to make homosexuality illegal in Ghana.
Mm.
So it was going to be a crime. There's just been a lot of back and forth, and they don't seem to be making a decision, which I understand honestly because a lot of the people are just hypocrites, and so they just seem to be going back and forth. But I'm really hoping it's not something that is enacted in Ghana. I'm so sorry Cambodian women are going through that, by the way, because we
Yeah,
all
I
deserve some sex toys.
we all deserve toys. I want to
Mhm.
go back to your point earlier about women, about men wanting women to be virgins but also to be like expert in sex. I remember
Yeah,
one line in Paris Paloma's song Labor, the song that went viral, where she said
yeah.
nymph and a virgin, right? Because that's what men want. They want women to be virgins, but at the same time to be suddenly very experienced, to be a nymph in bed, to know exactly what to do to pleasure them. Not to pleasure
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, but so that we can
Yeah,
pleasure them. But at the
yeah.
same time, we have to be like virgins, we have to be pure. So there's always these contrasts where women are demanded to be things that we can't be because they're polar opposites. So we can never satisfy in the eyes of the patriarchy, in the eyes of these men, which is why I just don't at all. Just let it go. Stop trying to satisfy the patriarchy. You're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, don't be a pick me. Nay.
And that's what some women are like, right? They're being pick me by saying that what the comment that I saw earlier said, if you want to have pleasure, if you want that itch scratched so much, go get a husband, don't use sex toys. Basically saying that women's pleasure is reliant on men, right? You need a man in your life to have pleasure. You cannot achieve it on your own because somehow, God forbid, a woman finds pleasure by herself, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I love my friends. I have a friend who takes a sex toy to every sex appointment she has. Like she's going to use it. Whether you are doing it right or you're doing it wrong, she's going to add her sex toy. And I love her so much for that because she's like, yeah, I'm here for me. You can just do whatever you want to do, but I'm also going to get myself off. And I love that. I think women should be that bold about taking and owning our pleasure because there's so much these men out here can do for you. Honestly, like just I don't know.
I
Sometimes like
mean,
why do we even need men?
sex with a good partner, an attentive partner is great, but
Yeah,
sex with
yeah.
yourself should also be great as well because you're stuck with you. So before my phone is like no more memory for this today, let's talk about the last point. What women and girls can do to discover their sexual pleasure. Tips and tricks.
I feel like one very important thing is, which counts for everything, is being informed, reading, like
Yep.
researching. Like now, Google, the internet, there's so many things. Even just go on YouTube, go on TikTok. So many people, so many empowered women are talking about sexual pleasure. There's a lot of things they are going to get from there. So just keep yourself informed and try to learn your body on your own time. Like, don't be so dependent on a man. So maybe it can just be one afternoon. Yeah, you don't even have to be bored. If you don't have anything to do, just dedicate 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and start. You can just start by touching your boobs. Like just discover yourself. Discover what you want, what you like,
I
so
mean,
that
boobs are
a
great.
man.
So.
Right, right. Very. So just because you are trying to rush this now, I think that's all I have for now. But just stay informed is very important. What do you have,
Yeah.
Kat?
I also want to highlight that there's a lot of information on the internet. So also make sure that you vet what kind of information that you're
True,
listening to as
true.
well. For example, don't take sex advice from Ben Shapiro. You know, common sense. So don't,
Yeah,
don't,
no.
especially like when incels say something, don't trust them. So try not to go into that kind of rabbit hole on the internet. I would say empowered women, exactly. Listen to empowered women. I would start by I really like to tell women this. Grab a mirror, go into a bathroom, look at yourself. Because it's so simple, and yet so many women don't know what they look like, right? We know what our hands, our arms, parts of our body look like because we see it in the mirror. We look down all the time. And yet, why is it that so many women and girls don't know what they look like down there, don't know what their genitals look like? It is a tragedy for me because when you are ashamed of a part of your body, you're ashamed of yourself. You feel like you're
Yeah.
dirty. You feel like that part is forbidden, but it's your body. It's part of owning and reclaiming your autonomy. So start by just taking a mirror, looking at yourself down there to see what you look like. And every person's genitals is beautiful. Know that you don't have to look like what porn stars look like in pornography
Yeah.
because we're all different. We're all a little bit, some people are more fleshy, some people are not. Some labias are shyer than the others, and that's okay. Learn to love yourself and then You can slowly discover what you like, what you don't like, and start from there. I know that it's a lot of unlearning because we're taught a lot of shame, but know that your body is beautiful. Your body is there for you. So we are wrapping. Gail, anything else to say about this episode about female pleasure?
I think we as women have to remember that it's important, and that for centuries, decades, society has dismissed and deprioritized women in general. And that includes how we experience and how we feel and how we think about our pleasure. There's nothing wrong with you for being this sexual being. It's natural, it's perfectly natural, irrespective of how men or other women in society will make you feel. Like, you need to own it. You need to own your shit, because, babe, you are really that person. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with knowing your body, knowing what you want. And I think being sexually empowered and knowing all the power you have to give yourself pleasure is also one of the ways we can challenge society's stereotypes and stigmas, because society is out here telling us that you should not feel pleasure. So it's just one great way to stick it in their eyes, stick it in their faces. That yes, I'm
Yeah,
all this, I'm all that, and there's nothing wrong with me, basically. So babe, own your pleasure. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with it.
I feel like in a world where everyone tries so hard to police women's body in every way, legislators, governments, society, men, everyone tries to control women's body, telling us what we can and cannot do, how we can or cannot feel. One of the most powerful things that you can do is own your body, is say that no, my body is my own. It's not yours, it's not the government's, it's no one else's. It's mine, and I get to decide what I want to do with my body. I
Period.
get to decide who has access to it. I get to decide for me because it's my own body. I think that's very powerful, especially in this world.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you. You're always saying these empowering things. I'm empowered myself. Hearing you
I am
talk.
empowered by you. We're empowering each other.
Yeah, we do
Like
that.
we need to. Yeah, so it's gonna be fun cutting snippets for social media because we're all saying all
Yeah,
these things, right?
totally, totally. Okay, so this is our first episode, and we are going to have many more juicy episodes for you on very educative, informational, and entertaining topics about women and our pleasure in general. So you can find us on all social media platforms, on Instagram at It's Once and Rabbits, YouTube to watch our full videos, Ones and Rabbits, and on TikTok, Ones and Rabbits, just to watch our videos. So we will be coming to you weekly. So stay tuned and just have fun with us on this journey we are starting.
Yeah, follow us on social media and also all podcasts listening apps as well. And we look forward to welcoming you to our little women, girl, femininity, divine cave kind of thing in the next episode. We'll see you then. Bye.
Yeah.